So it's time for us to look back at the year that's passed. Two mistakes stand out to me immediately. Number one, when I reviewed the Perodua Ativa, I said this might be the most important review we do all year. I was wrong. I also said in an earlier video that for the facelifted Perodua Myvi, there is no way Perodua will throw the full gamut of Perodua Smart Drive Assist features into this car simply because it doesn't ride on the new DNGA platform. And again, I was wrong. This is the new Perodua Myvi. This is going to be the most important review we do all year. And with millions of these cars sold, let's see if all those buyers were wrong. So the headlining changes for the updated Perodua Myvi obviously is the gearbox and the interior and the safety, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So we'll touch on first the aesthetics. Now, the Generation 3 Myvi was already a pretty good looking thing. It definitely wasn't broken, so there wasn't really much to fix. So for this facelift, Perodua has given it a more prominent grille, now with the chrome bars that extend into a new set of headlights. They're broadly the same shape, but the internals have been updated and they are now full LED, including the positioning lights and the indicators. At the bottom, fog lights are gone. On 1.5 models, you now get LED daytime running lights, a first for a Perodua and the first for the Myvi, at least standard fit. You also get a very prominent chin spoiler for the 1.5 models, which I'm not too sold on, but okay. Moving down the side, we get very few changes. We have the same dual tone alloy wheels as before. In fact, the alloy wheels for both the 1.3 and 1.5 models have not changed, simply because the wheels look fine, and I agree. We now get black wing mirror caps, again to match the Perodua Ativa. You still get the same skirting down the side. You don't get two-tone roof. This is a Myvi after all. And at the back, you get a new rear bumper with some black fins, so it looks like the daytime running lights in the front. Actually, I'm really not sold on this rear bumper. In fact, this facelift as a whole seems a little bit odd to me, because the Myvi wasn't exactly an ugly thing to begin with. I always thought it was rather fetching. And there's something about this facelift, the bumper treatment on either end, it doesn't really work for me. But the thing is, like I said, this is a facelift, so very few things have changed, including in terms of practicality. The boot of the Perodua Myvi remains one of its strongest assets, with plenty of space, a very low load lip, and a 60/40 folding rear seat. You also get three 3-point seat belts in the back and 2 ISOFIX mounts with top tethers to keep both rear passengers, adult and children, safe at all times. And of course, as with any Perodua, you can also opt to have Perodua's care seat included with the car as part of the loan bundle, helping to reduce your upfront costs a little bit. Now, that's everything that's changed on the outside. Let's go and see what's going on inside. Red, 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 red. That is what's going on with the interior of the Perodua Myvi Advance. If you don't like red, tough, because it's on the seats, it's now on the dash, it's also in the dials, everything is red. And like I said, if you don't like it, tough. The thing is, there are some good reasons for this. The red accents on the dash, for example, those replace the chrome inserts, which used to look very posh, but would actually then sort of hit glare into the driver's eye. So that's been changed. And for the red in the dials, well, that's just to make it look a little bit sportier. The dials have actually seen a very significant upgrade. So they are now back to the Optitron style lights, where now the dials look completely black when they're off, and then they illuminate when you turn the car on, which is great. And for the advanced model, the 2 analog dials now flank a color multi-info display, which gives you all sorts of things. You can change settings on the car, you can have all of your trip information there, your instant fuel consumption, everything is displayed there. The display itself is very crisp. It has a very nice animation when you turn the car on and when you switch it off. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a major upgrade for the Myvi, because it does really help improve the perceived quality in here. Now, to operate the multi-info display, obviously you need more buttons, and that comes in the form of this new steering wheel, which has all of the relevant buttons. This steering wheel has been nicked from the Ativa, but the eagle-eyed among you will notice that the button arrangement has changed ever so slightly to correspond with the features that this car has. It has broadly the same features as the Ativa, but somehow the arrangement has changed a little bit. There are still some blank buttons, but you also get blank buttons on the Ativa, so that doesn't really change much. You also get a new infotainment system with a much larger screen than before. I say much, but I mean, you know, relatively, with the same interface as the Ativa, which means it's very snappy, it's quite sharp, but it still doesn't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which sucks. Also, we still get the same digital air conditioning controls as per before, but now you cycle through the memory and you have a dedicated off button instead of having to press the fan down button forever. That really does help. Now, some things in this car have not changed, like all of the cool interior features, such as the built-in toll reader, the anti-snatch theft hook, and the USB port on the side of the driver's seat. You also get the little pockets on either side, again to aid practicality, and I appreciate these things, especially the teh tarik hooks in the back, where anything you ikat tepi, you can just sort of hang there, or if you tapau also you can hang there, which I quite like. It also means that the practicality in this car hasn't changed. You still get a relatively large glove box, you still get bottle holders in the doors, and there's a decent amount of space all over the place for bits and bobs. That also means that space for people hasn't really changed either. With this seat set up in my driving position, there is absolutely tons of room in the back for 2 adults or 3 at a push. Like I said earlier, you can put 2 child seats back there via the ISOFIX mounts, and children should be quite safe in this car. You still do not get rear aircon vents, however, but it's a facelift. What were you expecting? Even the change of the gearbox was a pretty significant thing. We didn't see that one coming, so I guess with this, we'll just take what we can get. Now, onto the gearbox and the safety features. Now, Perodua has spent 50 million ringgit on R&D costs for this facelift, so let's go and feel what that's like out on the road. Now, driving the new Myvi. Now, as someone who's quite familiar with the Myvi, there is a lot of the familiar, but it's mixed in with a lot of the new. So like I mentioned earlier, sitting here, you are immediately greeted by the new steering wheel, the new dials, and the red trim around the place. So it's very hard for you to forget that you're in the new Myvi. And in fact, when you hit the throttle for the first time, you'd be remiss to forget that this is the new Myvi, however, because the engine note is still very similar. But then, a couple of seconds afterwards, you'll soon realize that the power delivery in this car is very different. So thanks to CVT, what that means is, instead of feeling the car kind of roll through gears and so on, it just sort of sits at an RPM that the car decides is the best speed, and you just sort of sit there and you slowly, gently get up to speed. Slowly isn't quite the word to use here, as Perodua says that thanks to this CVT, the acceleration performance has improved by some margin. But the thing is, in town, you will appreciate the fact that this gearbox now gives the Myvi a sense of urgency that it may not necessarily have had before. Because of the very short gearing in the 4-speed automatic gearbox, the first and second gears would run out of puff relatively quickly. But thanks to CVT being able to get just the right ratio as in when you need it, it means that this car is better suited to try and work with your intentions, at least however it interprets your intentions to be. And of course, what this means is the engine is always at its optimum speed, so there's never an excess amount of noise in this car. So you don't get the engine screaming nearly as often as it used to. Instead, the car just sort of gets up to speed in a very natural, very linear sort of way, and it's very easy for you to get used to. Of course, the biggest benefit is when you're out on the motorway, like I am now, or rather as I'm about to exit the motorway. What this allows the Myvi to do is actually cruise at 110 kilometers an hour while only doing maybe about 1,100 RPM, which is very, very low for the Myvi. And as a result, when you're on the motorway, when you're just cruising along, you hear very little of the powertrain. This engine stays quite muted a lot of the time, and as a result, it makes the car a very pleasant place to be. I apologize for the camera angles as a result of me taking a banked corner. It's sort of moving around a little. But as a result, as you're driving along, like I'm accelerating from 60 to 80 now, you hear very little of the engine. So this would have led some people to believe that there have been some NVH upgrades or NVH improvements, but in reality there really hasn't. The engine is no more muted or any noisier than it used to be. The gearbox is just as quiet as the 480, and unfortunately there's still a decent amount of wind and road noise, particularly when you're approaching national highway speeds. But at the very least, although the Myvi isn't noticeably quieter with this facelift, it is at least a lot more convenient. So one of the biggest upgrades with this car after the CVT automatic gearbox is the inclusion of Perodua Smart Drive Assist, or PSDA, with ASA 3.0. So what that means is ASA 3.0 is things like autonomous emergency braking, now with pedestrian and cyclist detection, and also things like front vehicle departure alert and pedal misoperation alert and stuff like that, whereas Perodua Smart Drive Assist is the bigger umbrella term, and so that covers things like the automatic high beam, which this car comes with, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, and lane departure alert, as well as the adaptive cruise control that this car comes with. Yes, the Perodua Myvi is now the most affordable vehicle in Malaysia with adaptive cruise control, as this model comes in at just under 60,000 ringgit. Now, the thing about this car having level 2 semi-autonomy at just 60,000 ringgit means that one, a lot of the competition looks bad, but also that there are now a lot more features for people to have to get used to at this price point. Now, the Myvi previously not only didn't have the CVT, but also didn't even have cruise control. Now the Myvi AV comes with adaptive cruise control, which is a huge upgrade over the outgoing car. Now, this obviously makes the Myvi, again, the safest B-segment hatchback out there, at least within this price range. Even vehicles like the Toyota Yaris and the Honda City hatchback only offer this sort of thing at about double the price, if not more still. And so this is obviously a very big benefit for Perodua Myvi buyers. What this means is now Myvi drivers will be safer than ever before. But while Perodua Smart Drive Assist is limited to the 1.5 advanced model, the ASA 3.0 is now available on even more variants than ever before, ensuring that safety is not a luxury and it is not reserved only for those willing to pay that sort of money for it. Now, the other benefit to, of course, the new powertrain, or rather the new gearbox, is the improved fuel consumption. Now, Perodua claims in excess of 20 kilometers per litre for both the 1.3 and the 1.5. Now, we've been driving the 1.5 around for a few days, and without too much spirited driving, mostly urban traffic and that sort of thing, over almost 400 kilometers, and we've been averaging about 17 kilometers per litre. Now, in the 1.3, obviously these figures are a little bit better given the fact that engine is inherently more efficient. But as far as we're concerned, this consumption figure is slightly better than what we used to get from the 480 Perodua Myvi. That's a car that we're very, very familiar with. We've done many hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers in those cars. So we know exactly what sort of fuel economy figures we can expect from that. And so we can definitely say that the CVT gearbox does improve the fuel economy in the Myvi. In addition to the performance gains and the economy gains and the gains in terms of highway speed refinement especially, it's very clear that this new Myvi sets a new standard, not just for itself but also for the segment. Thanks to the safety technology especially that we're very glad Perodua took the time and effort and money to include, it's very clear that Perodua Myvi's domination of this segment is only set to continue. In any case, that's been our review of the new Perodua Myvi with the CVT automatic gearbox. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell icon so you're notified every time we make a new upload. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. All the links are in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Take care, stay safe and Happy New Year.